Okay, so in this one, I want to talk a little bit about posture, specifically woodwind posture, because I'm a woodwind player and I know a little bit about that. So I'm going to go over flute, clarinet, and saxophone posture. I can't play flute very well. I can play clarinet a little bit, so I'm not going to play too much in this one. But I will show you how to do a little bit of posture. So the first thing that is universal for the first couple things that are universal for all instruments too, not just woodwinds, is you want to keep your feet. You can't see my feet, but you want to keep your feet flat on the floor, and you want to sit up so that you're not touching, your back isn't touching the back of the chair. And some people will say, well, that means you have to, sit really forward in your chair like this. Well, you can do that, but for me that's not very comfortable, and it doesn't really give you a lot of stability either. So you can be all the way on the chair, just sit up so that your back isn't on the back, and that opens up your chest area so that you can get a nice deep breath and a nice good sound. Feet on the floor, kind of same thing. You're kind of grounded a little bit, and also you won't fall over. So, but those are some things that are pretty universal for all instruments. So let me grab my flute here, which is right here. Okay, so posture for the flute is pretty simple. Obviously, you hold it and you just put it up to your mouth, and you just keep it as straight as you can. Keep it, keep it as level to the ground as you can. Don't let it dip like this if your arm gets tired, or have it weirdly like this. So that's a pretty easy one. Again, the common thing you do for flute is that people tend to dip like this and play like this. I mean, a little bit of that is okay, but generally speaking, you want to be pretty much straight on, like that. Right? Okay, so clarinet. Here's the next one. Grab my clarinet here. So for clarinet, same thing. Feet flat on the floor, back off the back of your chair. You want to make sure you're not holding the clarinet too far in to your chest or too far out like this. It's not a soprano saxophone, right? You're not supposed to play clarinet like this. So you kind of want to keep your mouthpiece at a nice kind of neutral angle, but point it down. I've heard like 45 degrees or 35 degrees is probably the best, but right here, I'm going to turn to the side. My angle is about like that. That's pretty much what's comfortable for me. Another important thing to note about all woodwinds, but especially clarinet, is to make sure your fingers are as close to the keys as you can, because obviously with clarinet you're having to actually cover the holes, and the less movement you have, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to cover the holes every time when you go to play a note. So that's, the main thing about clarinet, I think, is the angle. Those are the deals with the flute and the clarinet. I'm not an expert, but that's something that you guys can take heed of. So I want to talk about alto and tenor saxophone next. So that's why I have my neck strap on. So with alto, what is most comfortable for me generally is to have the alto in between my knees. I don't know if you can't really see my knees that much, but some players like to play with it off to the side, but you really have to do that with tenor. But with alto, you don't have to, and I've found that putting it in the middle is a little bit more comfortable for me. I don't have to, adjust my mouthpiece and my neck in weird directions. I can kind of keep it nice and in line and even, and just have the horn right there. Now, one thing to note about the neck strap is that you don't want to have your neck strap too high or too low. So, there's a little bit of a variation of this based on your own personal preference, but especially when you're first learning or starting out, you really kind of want to have it nice, and you don't even have, see, I'm even tipping a little bit, see, so that when you want to have it, so when you have your horn like this, and you turn around again like this, so you're like this, and then you bring it up, and you want it to just meet your face. You don't want to have to tip down and up and all this. Side note, personally, I find that I don't like to have it up like that. I don't know. I kind of find that constricting. So I like to play a little bit more down. But people have told me that's wrong, but I just never stop. But you also don't want to have it too low that you're reaching like this. That's no good either. But you don't want to have it high. See, this is too high. You have to reach like this for it. You don't want to do that either. You kind of want it to be as neutral as you can. That way the air can go through. That's for alto and tenor. But I feel like that's easier to do when you put the horn in between your knees. So alto, I always go in between the knees, and nice, even posture that you're not reaching down for it too much. So that's alto. That's pretty simple. So now let's move on to tenor, which is a little bit more complicated. That's what I was gonna say. The other advantage to having the alto in between your knees is that if you're in jazz band and you want to solo, you can just stand up and you don't have to, tweak the mouthpiece and the neck positioning. Which I've found that when you put your horn to the side, you have to, and I'll get to that right now with the tenor. So the thing with the tenor is that most people cannot have it in between their knees. It's too big. I certainly can. I've seen people who can do it, but for me, the bow area, which is the bottom here, the bow area tends to hit the chair, and you don't want that. And plus, just the way I'm built proportionally, I can't get my fingers down there enough. It feels like I'm hitting my hand on my knee every time, because your hand is lower on the tenor because it's a bigger instrument. So I wish I could, because that looks totally cool, but I can't have the tenor in the middle like that. So I have to play over to the side. So and this took me a couple weeks or months when I first started playing tenor to figure out what was the most comfortable thing for me to do. And pretty much what I've found that is the best for playing tenor is you have your horn to the side. You want to tilt your neck over to your right side a little bit, and then you'll just turn your mouthpiece just ever so slightly in that direction also, so that when you go to play, even if your horn is at the side, you bring see, mine's still a little bit too low. You bring it up and it's right there. You don't have to, and you have to adjust a little bit. But you're not cocking your head funny, or you're not tilting and all that. Especially if you're playing in concert band or big band, you really want to be able to just go right to it. And see, that's what's basically worked for me. But the disadvantage of that is when you stand up to solo, it's hard to stand up and play this, because you can see how much the neck is tilted over. So you'd have to just put it back like that, which is kind of annoying if you're having to get up all the time. Another thing I've kind of done, when I play tenor in big band, when I have to go and solo a lot, is instead of sitting right diagonal like this, I'll sit on the chair a little sideways and then just tilt like this and do that. So what I'm basically doing is I'm still having my horn to the side, but my knees are pointed to my left, and then I can put the horn up to my face, and maybe I have to tilt a little bit, but I can do the mouthpiece, I don't have to tilt that much, and then it's right there, and then when I can stand up to solo, I don't have to adjust anything. So that's something that works too. I mean, that's more for jazz band. For concert band, I just sit right straight and just move my neck over, and then you can just play like that. But find something that kind of works for you. But basically, you don't want to be reaching for the mouthpiece really in any significant way. So that's a little bit about. I know it's kind of a short one. That's a little bit about posture for woodwinds. I'm sure on flute and clarinet I missed some things, but for saxophone, that's pretty much how you do it. And always feet off the floor, back off the back of the chair, and make sure you take in nice deep breaths. So that's it for that one. I'll see you in the next one. Off the floor, feet off the back of the chair, or feet off the back of the chair. No. Right. maybe I'll cut that out because the gain's really bad.